The stars around Earth seemed different that morning when the first alien ships appeared. Commander Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of the Orbital Defense Station, watching her screens with careful eyes. She had been waiting for this day for 20 years. Earth had been preparing for this moment even longer. The ships that came from deep space were beautiful in a deadly way. They moved like silver birds through the darkness between planets. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals that caught starlight and threw it back in rainbow colors. Lisa counted 12 large vessels and twice as many smaller ones. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built, or so it seemed. The lead ship sent a message across all frequencies. The signal was strong and clear. When the translation computers finished their work, the voice that came through was smooth and cold like winter wind. It belonged to someone who expected to be obeyed without question. Primitive inhabitants of the Third World from this star, I am Lady Seraphina Moonwhisper of the Galactic Dominion Empire. Your planet has been selected for incorporation into our great civilization. You will surrender all military assets and submit to Imperial authority within 72 hours. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species. Lisa listened to these words without moving a muscle in her face. Around her, the other humans on the bridge stayed just as calm. They had practiced for this moment many times. Dr. Amy Parker stepped forward from her position near the communication console. She was Earth's best expert on alien psychology, even though she had never met a real alien before today. Commander Martinez, Amy said quietly, should I respond according to Protocol 7? Lisa nodded once. Protocol 7 was the plan they had worked on for years. It required them to appear weak and scared while buying time for the real preparations to begin. Earth needed to look like just another helpless world full of primitives who had never seen the stars. Amy activated the main communication array. When she spoke, her voice shook just a little bit, as if she was afraid. The shaking was not real, but the aliens would not know that. This is Dr. Amy Parker speaking for the United Earth Government. We received your message, Lady Seraphina. Our leaders need time to discuss your demands. We request 72 hours to consult with all Earth nations before we can give you an answer. On the main screen, Lady Seraphina's face appeared for the first time. She was beautiful in the way that elves were supposed to be beautiful. Her skin was pale like moonlight, and her eyes were the color of deep forest shade. Her ears came to sharp points, and her silver hair fell in waves past her shoulders. But there was something cold in her expression that made her beauty seem dangerous. How amusing, Lady Seraphina said with a small smile that did not reach her eyes. The little humans think they have a choice in this matter. Very well. We grant your request for consultation time. Do not mistake our patience for weakness. Use these hours wisely to prepare your surrender. The communication ended, and the alien ships moved into positions around Earth. They spread out, in a pattern that would let them attack from all directions at once. Lisa watched them settle into their formation and felt a cold satisfaction in her heart. The aliens were doing exactly what Earth's military planners had hoped they would do. Admiral Kara Thompson's voice came through the secure communication channel that connected all of Earth's hidden military installations. All stations, this is Admiral Thompson. The fish have taken the bait. Begin Phase 1 preparations immediately. Maintain communication silence except for emergency protocols. Lisa acknowledged the order with a quick code signal. Around Earth's solar system, things began to move in the darkness between planets. Hidden bases that had been built inside asteroids started powering up their systems. Ships that had been waiting in the cold emptiness of space began to move toward new positions. The Great Deception was beginning. On her bridge, Lisa watched the alien ships through telescopes and sensors. They moved with confidence and grace as if they owned the space around Earth already. Their weapons were powerful enough to destroy cities from orbit. Their shields could stop anything that humans were supposed to be able to throw at them. But Lady Seraphina and her fleet did not know what humans were really capable of building when they put their minds to it. The aliens had made their first mistake by giving Earth time to prepare. They had made their second mistake by assuming that humans were as primitive as they appeared to be. In 72 hours, they would learn just how wrong they had been about both things. Dr. Amy Parker began preparing for the next phase of contact. She would need to play her part perfectly over the next 3 days. The aliens had to believe that Earth was helpless and afraid, right up until the moment when the trap was finally sprung. Everything depended on maintaining the illusion that humans were weak and unprepared. Lisa looked out at the stars and thought about all the years of secret preparation that had led to this moment. Earth was ready for war, but the aliens would never see it coming. The next day brought formal negotiations between Earth and the Galactic Dominion Empire. Dr. Amy Parker sat across from Lady Seraphina in a meeting room aboard the alien flagship. The room was decorated with crystals that glowed with their own inner light and metals that seemed to shift color when nobody was looking directly at them. Amy made sure to look nervous as she studied the documents that Lady Seraphina had given her. The surrender terms were exactly as harsh as Earth's planners had expected them to be. Humans would become a slave species working in mines and factories across the galaxy. Earth itself would be strip-mined for its resources until nothing remained but empty rock. "These terms are very severe, Lady Seraphina," Amy said while letting her hands shake slightly as she held the papers. "I am not sure our leaders will be able to accept them. Perhaps we could discuss some modifications." Lady Seraphina laughed, and the sound was like silver bells ringing in a cold wind. "You misunderstand the nature of this meeting, Dr. Parker. These are not negotiations. These are the terms of your surrender. The only choice your species has is whether you submit peacefully or we take your world by force." Beside Lady Seraphina stood Zixathera, the reptilian tactical officer. Her scales were dark green with gold patterns that marked her as a member of an ancient warrior caste. Her yellow eyes watched Amy with the cold calculation of a predator sizing up prey. Unlike Lady Seraphina, she did not seem amused by the humans. "Apparent weakness, my lady," Zixathera said in a voice like grinding stone. "I have been monitoring the energy readings from the human orbital installations. There are some unusual patterns in their power signatures that do not match what we would expect from primitive technology." Lady Seraphina waved a dismissive hand. "The humans are probably running their generators at maximum capacity in a futile attempt to power some kind of defensive system. It matters little what toys they might have hidden. Nothing they possess could threaten even one of our escort vessels." Amy listened to this exchange while keeping her face carefully neutral. The aliens were detecting some of the energy signatures from Earth's hidden preparations, but they were misinterpreting what those readings meant. This was exactly what Earth's military strategists had hoped would happen. While Amy continued her performance aboard the alien flagship, Admiral Kara Thompson was coordinating the real preparations from a command center deep beneath the Colorado mountains. The facility had been built 50 years ago when Earth first detected signs of the expanding Galactic Dominion Empire moving through nearby star systems. "Status report from all sectors," Admiral Thompson said to her staff officers gathered around the massive tactical display that showed the entire solar system. "Asteroid Base 7 reports all systems online and weapons charged," came the first response. "They are maintaining minimal power signatures to avoid detection." "Jupiter Station confirms the Leviathan is ready for deployment," said another officer. "All fighter squadrons are prepared and standing by." "Mars Defense Grid shows green across all installations," reported a third. "The new plasma cannon arrays are fully operational." Admiral Thompson nodded as each report came in. Earth had spent decades building a defense network that spanned the entire solar system. Hidden bases had been carved out of asteroids and disguised to look like ordinary space rocks. Weapons platforms had been positioned at the edge of sensor range where they could not be easily detected. Most importantly, the massive Supercarrier, Leviathan, had been completed in secret shipyards behind Jupiter's largest moon. Back aboard the alien flagship, Amy was wrapping up the first day of formal discussions. She had successfully convinced Lady Seraphina that Earth's leaders were still debating the surrender terms among themselves. The alien commander seemed pleased with how easily the humans were being manipulated. "You have one more day to convince your people to accept reality, Dr. Parker," Lady Seraphina said as the meeting ended. "After that, we will demonstrate what happens to worlds that refuse to submit to Imperial authority." Amy returned to Earth aboard a small shuttle that the aliens had graciously allowed to pass through their blockade. As soon as she was back on the surface, she reported directly to Admiral Thompson's command center. The contrast between her nervous performance aboard the alien ship and her confident demeanor in the secure facility was like watching two different people. "They are completely convinced that we are helpless," Amy reported. Lady Seraphina believes that our technology is centuries behind theirs. She thinks our orbital defense stations are the best we can manage and that we have no capability for offensive operations. Perfect, Admiral Thompson replied. What about the reptilian tactical officer? Did she seem suspicious? Zixathara is more cautious than her commander, but she is interpreting our energy signatures as signs of desperation rather than preparation. She thinks we are trying to power up old defensive systems that will not be effective against their weapons. Admiral Thompson studied the tactical display showing the positions of the alien fleet. The ships had moved closer to Earth during the day and were now in perfect position for the trap that had been planned so carefully. Every alien vessel was exactly where Earth's strategists wanted them to be. Signal all units to begin final preparations. Admiral Thompson ordered, In 24 hours, we show these invaders what humans are really capable of when we put our minds to it. Across the solar system, hidden installations began their last checks before battle. The Great Deception was almost complete, and soon the Galactic Dominion Empire would learn that they had made a terrible mistake in choosing Earth as their next conquest. The 72-hour deadline arrived with the cold precision of a countdown timer reaching 0. Commander Lisa Martinez stood on her command bridge, watching the alien fleet position itself for what Lady Seraphina clearly expected to be a simple demonstration of imperial power. The beautiful elf commander had grown tired of waiting for human submission and was ready to show Earth what happened to worlds that refused to cooperate. Dr. Amy Parker sat in the communications center preparing for her final performance as Earth's frightened representative. Admiral Kara Thompson waited in her underground command post with her finger hovering over the controls that would activate the most elaborate military deception in human history. Across the solar system, thousands of personnel held their breath as they waited for the signal to spring the trap. Lady Seraphina's face appeared on screens across Earth as she broadcast her final ultimatum to the planet below. Her beautiful features were set in an expression of cold authority that had been perfected over centuries of conquest. Behind her stood Zixathara, whose reptilian eyes scanned readouts from the tactical displays that showed Earth's pathetic orbital defenses. People of Earth. Lady Seraphina began. Your time for consideration has ended. Your representatives have failed to provide the unconditional surrender that we demanded. We will now demonstrate the consequences of resistance to imperial authority. Your orbital installations will be destroyed as an example of our power. After that, you will have one final opportunity to submit before we begin bombarding your cities. Lisa Martinez activated her communication system and responded with the words that had been planned for years. Her voice was calm and steady without any trace of fear or desperation. Lady Seraphina, this is Commander Lisa Martinez of Earth Defense Command. We have considered your demands carefully and our answer is simple. Request denied. We have had enough time to prepare and we are ready for whatever you plan to do. The silence that followed this response lasted for exactly 10 seconds. Lady Seraphina's expression shifted from confident authority to confused surprise. She had expected pleading or panic or desperate attempts at negotiation. The calm confidence in the human commander's voice was not something she had anticipated. Very well, Lady Seraphina said after recovering from her momentary surprise. You have chosen destruction over wisdom. All ships begin bombardment of human orbital installations. Show these primitives what Imperial firepower can accomplish. The alien ships opened fire with weapons that could melt mountains and boil oceans. Beams of energy bright enough to be seen from the surface of Earth reached out toward the human defense stations. For a moment, it seemed as if the orbital installations would be vaporized in seconds by the overwhelming power of Imperial technology. Then something impossible happened. The orbital stations began to glow with energy shields that turned the alien weapons aside like water flowing around rocks. The shields were not just deflecting the energy beams, they were absorbing the power and channeling it into capacitors that had been hidden inside the station hulls. Impossible! Lady Seraphina whispered as she watched her weapons fail to even scratch the human defenses. Their technology should not be capable of generating shields with that level of efficiency. Zixathara was already running new scans of the human installations. Her reptilian features showed growing alarm as the sensor readings came back. My lady, these are not the primitive structures we first detected. The energy signatures are completely different now. They have been hiding there true capabilities from us. Before Lady Seraphina could respond to this information, the space around Earth began to change in ways that defied everything the aliens thought they knew about human technology. Hidden asteroid bases throughout the solar system suddenly powered up and revealed themselves. What had appeared to be ordinary space rocks were actually massive military installations disguised with the most sophisticated camouflage systems ever created. The largest surprise came from the direction of Jupiter, where something enormous began to decloak in the shadow of the giant planet's largest moon. The USS Leviathan emerged from its hiding place like a mountain moving through space. The supercarrier was over 3 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that made the alien ships look like toys by comparison. Lady Seraphina stared at the massive human vessel in shock that was too deep for words. The Leviathan was not just bigger than any ship in her fleet, it was bigger than any ship she had ever seen in her centuries of service to the Empire. The technology required to build something that size should have been beyond human capabilities for at least another 1,000 years. "All ships evasive maneuvers!" Zixthara shouted, as her tactical displays showed dozens of human warships dropping out of hyperspace around the alien fleet. "We are surrounded. They have been planning this trap for years." The human ships that appeared were sleek and deadly-looking vessels that moved with speed and grace that surpassed anything in the Imperial arsenal. Their hulls were dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their weapons charged with energy that made space itself seem to bend around the power they contained. Admiral Kara Thompson's voice came across all communication frequencies as the human fleet took up positions around the trapped aliens. "Imperial Fleet, this is Admiral Thompson of Earth Defense Command. You are completely surrounded and outgunned. Power down your weapons and prepare to receive boarding parties. Any attempt to flee or fight will result in the destruction of your entire fleet." Lady Seraphina looked around at the tactical display that showed her ships caught in a perfect sphere of human vessels. Every escape route was blocked by ships that were clearly superior to anything the Empire had built. The trap had been planned with precision that spoke of intelligence gathering and strategic thinking that went far beyond what she had believed humans were capable of. Commander Lisa Martinez appeared on the main screen of the alien flagship. Her calm confidence had been replaced by something that looked very much like predatory satisfaction. "Lady Seraphina, welcome to Earth space. I think it is time we had a more honest conversation about the balance of power in this galaxy." The USS Leviathan moved through space like a predator that had finally revealed itself after a long hunt. Its massive bulk cast shadows across the alien fleet as it positioned itself between the Imperial ships and any hope of escape. From its launch bays came wave after wave of fighter craft that moved with impossible speed and precision. These were not piloted by humans, but by artificial intelligence systems that could react faster than any biological mind. Lady Seraphina watched in growing horror as her supposedly invincible fleet found itself completely outmatched by technology. That should not have existed. The human fighters danced around her ships like angry wasps attacking a giant. Their weapons cut through Imperial shields as if they were made of paper instead of energy fields that had protected the Empire for thousands of years. "How is this possible?" Lady Seraphina demanded as she watched one of her escort vessels lose power and begin to drift helplessly through space. "Our intelligence report said these humans had barely achieved faster than light travel. They should be using chemical rockets and metal projectiles." Zixthara was frantically trying to coordinate some kind of defensive response, but every order she gave seemed to make the situation worse. The human ships anticipated every move the aliens made, as if they had been studying Imperial tactics for decades. "My lady, I believe they have been watching us for far longer than we realized. These weapons and ship designs are specifically created to counter our standard combat doctrine." Admiral Kara Thompson appeared on the communication screen with a smile that was both friendly and terrifying at the same time. Behind her, the bridge of the Leviathan stretched away into the distance, showing technology that made Imperial science look primitive by comparison. "Lady Seraphina, I think it would be wise for you to accept our invitation to come aboard for proper negotiations. Your fleet is in no position to continue fighting." The alien commander looked around at her tactical displays one more time, hoping to find some option that might allow her to salvage something from this disaster. Every screen showed the same hopeless situation. Her ships were surrounded by human vessels that outgunned them by ratios that made resistance pointless. Her weapons could not penetrate human shields, and her own defenses were being torn apart by weapons she did not understand. "We accept your invitation, Admiral Thompson," Lady Seraphina said with as much dignity as she could manage. "But I want guarantees for the safety of my crew." "Of course," Admiral Thompson replied. "We are not barbarians, Lady Seraphina. Your personnel will be treated according to the highest standards of military protocol. We simply want to discuss the future relationship between Earth and the Galactic Dominion Empire." A human shuttle docked with the alien flagship, and Lady Seraphina found herself escorted aboard by soldiers wearing armor that seemed to be made of liquid metal. The armor moved like living tissue, but was obviously harder than anything the Empire had ever developed. The soldiers were polite, but their weapons were clearly far more advanced than anything in the Imperial arsenal. The journey to the Leviathan took only a few minutes, but it was long enough for Lady Seraphina to see the true scale of human military preparation. The space around Earth was filled with defensive installations that had been completely invisible just hours before. Weapons platforms the size of cities floated in carefully planned formations that could defend against attacks from any direction. When Lady Seraphina stepped aboard the USS Leviathan, she found herself in a corridor that stretched away into the distance like the main street of a city. The walls were lined with displays showing star charts that covered thousands of light-years in every direction. The level of detail suggested that humans had been mapping and studying the galaxy for far longer than anyone had suspected. Admiral Thompson met her in a conference room that was bigger than the throne room in the Imperial Palace. The human admiral was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She gestured for Lady Seraphina to sit at a table that was made from a single piece of crystal that seemed to contain tiny stars swimming in its depths. "I imagine you have questions, Lady Seraphina," Admiral Thompson said as she took her own seat. "Across from the alien commander, let me start by explaining how we knew you were coming. Earth detected the expansion of your empire 47 years ago when our long-range sensors picked up the energy signatures of your fleet movements in the Wolf system." Lady Seraphina felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the implications of what she was hearing. "You have been preparing for this encounter for almost 50 years. 53 years to be precise," Admiral Thompson confirmed. "We knew that eventually your expansion would reach our solar system. We decided that when that day came, we wanted to be ready with more than just harsh language and good intentions." Dr. Amy Parker entered the conference room, carrying a data pad filled with information that made Lady Seraphina's heart sink even further. "Admiral Thompson, our intelligence analysis is complete. The Empire has been conducting systematic genocide against 17 different species over the past century. We have documented evidence of the destruction of entire planetary populations." Admiral Thompson's expression hardened as she reviewed the information. "Lady Seraphina, it seems your empire has been very busy spreading what you call civilization across the galaxy. We find your methods somewhat lacking in basic moral standards." The alien commander tried to maintain some semblance of diplomatic dignity, even though her position was clearly hopeless. "The Empire brings order and progress to primitive worlds that cannot govern themselves effectively. Some resistance is inevitable, but the greater good requires firm action." "The greater good," Admiral Thompson repeated with a tone that could have frozen nitrogen. "Lady Seraphina, I think it is time someone explained to your empire what the greater good actually looks like when it is not filtered through the lens of genocidal conquest." The final negotiations took place in the main briefing room of the USS Leviathan, where Lady Seraphina found herself surrounded by holographic displays showing the true extent of human military capability. Admiral Thompson had decided that the time for deception was over, and the alien commander needed to understand exactly what kind of force Earth could bring to bear across the galaxy. "These are our current fleet positions, Lady Seraphina," Admiral Thompson said as she activated a display that showed dozens of star systems. "We have been building ships and establishing bases throughout this entire region for the past 30 years. Your empire is not the only power that knows how to plan for the future." Lady Seraphina stared at the tactical display in shock that had moved beyond surprise into something approaching terror. The humans had not just been preparing to defend Earth, they had been preparing to project power across interstellar distances. The network of bases and fleet positions she was looking at represented a military capability that could challenge the Empire on equal terms. Zix Thara had been allowed to accompany her commander to the negotiations, and the reptilian tactical officer was studying the human displays with professional interest. Admiral Thompson, these fleet deployments suggest that you have been monitoring Imperial expansion for decades. You know the positions of our major bases and the patrol routes of our fleets. We know a great deal about Imperial operations, Zix Thara. Dr. Amy Parker confirmed as she joined the discussion. We have been intercepting your communications and tracking your ship movements since we first detected your presence in nearby systems. Your security protocols are not as secure as you might think. Commander Lisa Martinez appeared on the main communication screen, connecting from Earth orbit, where she was coordinating the final phases of the operation that had trapped the alien fleet. Admiral Thompson, we have completed our analysis of Imperial technology. Their weapons and defense systems are approximately 200 years behind our current capabilities. Their faster-than-light drives are efficient but limited in range compared to our hyperspace engines. Admiral Thompson nodded at this report before turning back to Lady Serafina. I think you are beginning to understand the situation, Lady Serafina. Your empire has built its power on the conquest of species that could not defend themselves effectively. You have never encountered a civilization that was actually prepared for your arrival. The alien commander looked around the room at the human officers and scientists who were discussing her fleet, as if it were an interesting but obsolete museum display. The casual confidence in their voices made it clear that they considered the Imperial military to be no more threatening than children playing with toy weapons. What do you want from us? Lady Serafina asked, with the first trace of genuine fear she had shown since the trap was sprung. Your technology is clearly superior to ours. You could destroy our fleet without difficulty. Why are we having this conversation instead of fighting a battle? Because Admiral Thompson wants to offer your empire a choice, Dr. Amy Parker explained. Earth is not interested in conquest or genocide. We simply want to be left alone to develop our civilization in peace. But we also cannot ignore the suffering that your empire has caused across the galaxy. Admiral Thompson activated another display that showed star charts covering thousands of light years in every direction. Red markers indicated worlds that had been destroyed or enslaved by Imperial forces. Yellow markers showed species that were currently under attack. Green markers indicated the few remaining free civilizations that had managed to avoid Imperial attention. Lady Serafina, your empire has two options, Admiral Thompson said, with the calm authority of someone who held all the advantages in a negotiation. Option 1 is that you withdraw your forces from human space and sign a non-aggression treaty that guarantees Earth's independence. You continue your expansion in other directions, and we maintain peaceful relations. And option 2, Lady Serafina asked, though she suspected she already knew what the answer would be. Option 2 is that Earth declares war on the Galactic Dominion, Empire. Admiral Thompson replied, We liberate every world you have conquered and dismantle your military capability permanently. We have the technology and the strategic position to accomplish this goal. The only question is whether you force us to prove it. Zix Thara leaned forward with sudden interest rather than fear. Admiral Thompson, if Earth were to pursue option 2, would you accept alliance proposals from species that have been fighting Imperial expansion? My own people were conquered 3 centuries ago, but we have never stopped hoping for liberation. We would be very interested in such alliances, Zix Thara. Dr. Amy Parker confirmed, Earth believes in the right of all sentient species to determine their own future without interference from Imperial expansion policies. Lady Serafina realized that she was watching the foundation of her civilization crumble around her. The Empire had been built on the assumption that no other species could match Imperial technology and military organization. The humans had just destroyed that assumption so completely that there was no way to rebuild it. I will need to consult with Imperial Command before I can make any agreements, Lady Serafina said, though her voice lacked the confidence it had carried just days before. These decisions are beyond my authority to make. Of course, Admiral Thompson agreed. You have 72 hours to contact your superiors and receive instructions. After that, we will assume that the Empire has chosen option 2, and we will begin liberation operations accordingly. The meeting ended with Lady Serafina and her escort being returned to their ship under human guard. As they departed the USS Leviathan, the alien commander looked back at the massive supercarrier and realized that the galaxy had changed forever. The age of imperial expansion was over, and a new balance of power was about to emerge. Commander Lisa Martinez watched the alien ships begin their journey back to Imperial space, carrying news that would shake the foundations of the Galactic Dominion Empire. Earth had revealed itself as a major power overnight, and the other species of the galaxy now had reason to hope for freedom from Imperial rule. The stars no longer belonged to any single empire, and that was exactly how the humans intended to keep it.